This tutorial will talk a little bit about common materials you'll use in the print shop. Whenever you're handling something like ink or any chemicals, you're going to want to do it on a glass surface. First thing you want to do with that glass surface is clean it. Never assume any of the surfaces in the print shop are clean. So always take either your household cleaner or isopropyl or something simple and wipe it down with a clean rag. Once it's clean, you can get started. So the majority of the inks we use in here are oil-based. So you cannot put this in the sink or anything that's touched it in the sink. It must be cleaned with either isopropyl or mineral spirits. And I'll talk a little bit about that because there are some materials we cannot use isopropyl on. So the first thing is the ink. So you're going to use a palette knife to remove the ink out of its container. You'll notice in here, it's pretty flat, it's nice and thin. That's what you want. It looks fresh. You do not want this ink. It's been what we call gouged, meaning stabbed and pulled out. The way you want to take ink out of a can is by holding your palette knife upright and spreading the ink around, like so, until you have the amount you need. Now you can take a little bit out at a time, but this is all I need for this demo. So once I have it here, I can actually place it on my clean surface. I'll put the cap on my ink until I need to use it again. And the first thing you want to do is just mix that ink up to loosen it. Depending on the process, you might need a stiff ink or you might need a runny ink, depending on what you're doing. So to mix your ink, what I'm doing is I'm picking it all up by pressing against the glass and then pulling it towards me. Picking it up and then pulling it back toward me. That's going to help push the pigment into the binder and mix it up really well. So once I'm ready, I'm going to empty out my knife of all that excess ink so that I have a nice thin amount, and then push till I get a nice row of ink on my palette knife. And depending on what brayer or roller you're using, I only need to make a slab a little bit wider than my brayer itself. So just about that. Once I'm ready, I'll take my brayer and I'll just run it up and down until it picks up that ink and spreads it, like so. I'm going to roll out a pretty thin slab for this demo. If you're printing with like a wood block, you will definitely have to go thicker, depending on what you want. As you can see, I'm just trying to smooth it out. Whenever you want to add more ink to your brayer, go slower. If you want to take ink off, go faster. But right now my goal is to get a nice flat slab. If it's thin and flat here, it's going to be thin and flat on whatever substrate I ink up. So if I need to add more ink, I can either pick up this excess here and add it to the center, like I did before, or go back to this ink well and add ink there. So now the more ink I add, the thicker it's going to get. And you want to make sure to lift up your brayer as you work so that you get the entire surface. If you just go back and forth like this, you're only hitting whatever size your slab is. You'll notice I'm not getting too big. All I need is my circumference of my brayer. Don't hold too tight either. Just kind of let the weight of your brayer do the work. You don't want to push. You're just, again, using the weight of the brayer to do the work. And whenever you're done, make sure to place your brayer on the fence. Do not let it sit like this. Never let it sit like this. It will damage your roller. Always like that. And then you're ready to print. So You might be inking up a wood block or a copper plate or a litho stone. This is ready. So once you're done and ready to go, you finished your project, now you need to clean up your area. First thing you want to do is save your ink. So I didn't use any of this, so I'm actually going to just put it all together. But if I did use the slab, I probably would discard this ink and just save this pure ink here. So I'm going to take my palette knife and my aluminum foil, and I'm just going to tear out a square, roughly a square like this, and then fold that square in half. Now, depending upon the amount of ink here, you might need to make this bigger, but fold this in half. What it does is it creates a nice sturdy holder, and then go to the edge of your table like so and fold it. Use this to crease it, and it also fold right in half like so. So you can see my piece is folded right in half, and then use your brayer and collect all your ink. Remember, I haven't used this to print, so I can just save all of this ink. But if you did print with this, it's not a great idea to save what's in your slab, because it probably has paper fibers in it. And then take all that ink and use the edge of the table to remove all that ink off your brayer. This is a great way to save as much ink as possible. Once you're ready here, so I could even make this smaller because it's not really a lot of ink. For the sake of the demo, I kept it pretty small. You'll then fold this over, and you're going to make a pocket to prevent all of the air from getting out, because you want to keep this protected from air. Air is going to dry out your ink. Once you've done that, you can fold the sides over twice, or however many you need till you get to the ink on both sides, and then fold this in. Now, if you have a recipe that you want to save, you can actually incorporate it. So I'll just use some of this ink to pull what we call a drawdown. So I'm just going to use this excess ink here, pull my drawdown like so, and then I can write my recipe and slide it right in here. And then I have my ink saved and my recipe saved as well. And that can all just be housed together and stored. Now I need to clean up. So first thing I'm going to clean up is my brayer, because it has the most ink and will take the longest. What I'm going to do first is take my scraper and remove the thick parts of the ink. You can see the scraper does a great job with removing most of the ink. And then I'll set this aside. And then I'm going to take mineral spirits. So like I said, there's certain things you can only use mineral spirits for, and that's here. Using your brayer, it's made of rubber, and if you use alcohol in this, alcohol will dry out the rubber and cause this to pucker. So we don't want that. So mineral spirits or paint thinner is what you want to use, or if you have it, lithotrine. Lithotrine is great too. So I poured out my mineral spirits, I'm letting it do the work. I'm just running my brayer across it to get it saturated with that mineral spirits, but not have to make too much of a mess. Then I have two rags. I have a clean, actually I have three rags. I have a clean, a dirty, and a kind of midway. So I want to use my dirty rag first to do all the heavy lifting and clean up most. So I'm just running that rag across the brayer. I'm not worrying that it's not completely clean yet, because I'm just trying to get the thick parts of that brayer clean. Don't forget to clean the sides. And right now I'm just doing the first cleanup. It's going to take a few tries to get it all the way clean. So I'm removing some of that mineral spirits just so it doesn't get back in. And then I'm going to pour a little bit more. I can either do another run of the mineral spirits on the brayer or just put it right on my rag. And then I'm going to use my middle one to clean. just so I don't use that dirty one and get more ink back on the brayer. Clean the sides, and then it just needs one more run, but I usually wait until the very end when I remove my gloves and everything. That's the final clean. So now I remove this and take my palette knife. The yellow pages or a scrap of piece of newsprint to remove the majority of this. I'll also need to do the same for my scraper. And this I can take my dirty rag from before and remove the majority of this. You can see there's a lot of caked ink from before. That just needs another scraper to pick that up. And then this needs to be cleaned really well, because the last thing you want to do is pick up a palette knife that has a ton of ink already on it. And this also follows with, don't assume these are clean either. Always clean them beforehand before you use them. So palette knife has several sides, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sides. You always want to clean each side, the edge and the flat panels. And lastly, your handle. This is a good example. It hasn't had its final cleaning yet, but you could see that this is nice and clean compared to one in the shop that I just picked up like that, not a dirty palette knife. And this is what I see a lot of times in the print shop, is this. That's what we don't want. I've done this, this. I even will go and clean my ink in case I got any ink on the sides, just to keep it. If you get ink inside, it might stick. And then, I'm almost done. I'm gonna now remove my gloves, because all I need to do now is just do some final wipes. And if I have ink on here, it could, slow that process down. So I'm gonna take my very clean rag and pull in my isopropyl and do all my, so the palette knife, I'm gonna continue to clean this. This is my nice final wipe. Get it nice and pretty. Same thing there. And then I have my mineral spirits clean rag that I'm gonna do here, especially on the handle. Get that nice and clean. And try my best to get as much of this off. Your ink will stain this, but try to do it as best, try to clean it as best you can. And then put everything away. Once you've put all your items away, you'll finish up by cleaning the surface again. It all comes back. So you can use mineral spirits, but I was cleaning along the way, so I just go right to the household cleaner. Mineral spirits is great for cleaning ink off, but it does leave a residue. So I always try to finish up with house cleaner and maybe a little bit of isopropyl. Isopropyl evaporates rather quickly, so it dries pretty fast. And there you go. That was just a basic tutorial on common tools in the print shop.